Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kate and today I'm going to be teaching you how to paint this easy watercolor Christmas gnome. Let's get started. All right, we are going to start this painting by first sketching out our Christmas gnome. So I am going to draw an oval to start out as the base shape for my gnome. These guys are pretty easy to draw just because they don't have a lot of shape to them. So just kind of starting out with an oval, and then I'm going to draw his hat first. So I'm going to come out a little bit farther on the sides and kind of create a curved rectangle, rounding off those edges just as the fluffy part, the bottom part of the hat. And then up at the top of our oval, I'm going to kind of bring out a little curved triangle with a little puff ball at the end for his little Christmas hat. So there's his hat, and then right underneath this puff part, we're going to draw a small, well, compared to our first oval, it's small, an oval for his nose. And then I'm going to draw his beard, starting at the hat. So it's just kind of curve down. And do the same thing on this side. Just curve down, and then I'm going to let it kind of come into a couple little sections here at the bottom. Kind of three little sections. So again, he's going to curve down one little triangle, another one, and then one last one. I always feel like I could mess around forever with the beard, so I might come back and touch that up later. And then I'm going to create a little arm coming down right around his beard. I'm going to do the same thing, kind of create like a little cuff in his hand. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. It's just kind of curving over his beard. I'm going to make a little cuff and just curving it up. And then I made this side way too long, because in the center we want to have a little coffee cup that he is holding. And it's going to be coffee or hot cocoa. So we're going to draw that real quick for a guide. So just a regular little cup, a circle, and then I brought down a little rectangle for the base. So now that I have that coffee cup in place, it's a much better guideline for me where to put his hands and his sleeves. So I'm just kind of connecting that. And again, this part of the arm is kind of hiding under the beard. And then I'm going to move this arm down just a little bit. And create that cuff. And give him a little circular arm. And by arm I mean hand, to hold his coffee cup. I'm just going to sharpen up that beard, the part that's actually going to be visible, because it's kind of coming inside his hands. Just like that. And then the bottom of him is going to stay that bottom part of the oval we originally drew. And then I'm just going to give him some big circles for his feet, for it just to look like he is sitting. And I just feel like this is a little out of proportion. Okay. I'm just going to draw a couple circles inside the coffee mug like marshmallows. Right, and there you have your sketch. So now I'm just going to erase some of the lines, like this one right here. I don't want that line to be there. The lines that are inside the shoes. And then I'm just going to kind of lighten up all of the pencil lines so they're not really visible when we start going through with our watercolor paint. All right, now that we have our sketch in place, we can start going in with our watercolor paint. So I've already mixed up some red paint in my palette, and we are just going to make his hat completely red. So we're going to have this entire top part of the hat using that Alzarian Crimson paint color. And I want this to be a very wet layer because I'm going to go back in while it's still wet and add some darker pigment. So just start with your lighter wash, and then we are going to go back in with some darker paint. So right around the edge of that hat, just using the tip of my brush so it doesn't really go into that white area that I'm gonna touch later. And then I'm not going to have it go all the way into that puff ball, just kind of stop on its way in. All right, and then while this is still wet, I'm going to grab that darker pigment of paint and I'm going to start tapping it in along the left side of the hat for the most part, and then I'm going to carry it along the edge of the hat. I want the shadow to be more the center area of the hat. So even over here, I'm going to carry that darker paint. Just kind of tap it in, let it blend. Just like that. And then we'll see once this layer dries if we need to add a second coat or if it'll look dark enough. So we're just going to leave it like that for now. And then while the hat dries, we can move down to his feet. And with his feet, we are just going to use some black paint and just fill in those ovals that we drew for his shoes. And I'm just going to take a little bit more black paint, just kind of tap it in the center and then blend it out just a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing to his other shoe. Take that black paint, just completely fill it in. Now we can move on to the nose and to the hands. So I'm going to take a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of that Alzarian crimson, and I'm going to make a peachy tone with those, mixing those two colors together. So those two colors and then a lot of water because I want it to be pretty light. And then all you're going to do is go into his nose and just fill up that entire area. Just like that. And I'm going to take the paint off my brush, just kind of pick it up right in the center just to create a little bit of a highlight. And then very quickly, I just see a lot of pencil lines still showing right around his hands. So I'm just going to erase those lines a little bit more. And then very carefully get rid of that. Because this wash is going to be so light, I don't want any of those pencil lines really showing through. Alright, so I'm going to just take that same paint color and apply it to his little hands. And just like that. So now that the hat has completely dried, we are going to go in with a very light wash of gray to add shadowing to the white part of his hat and the puffball over here. So I'm going to first take clean water on my brush, and I'm just going to fill in that entire area with a nice coat of clean water. And I'm going to do both of the white areas separately. And then I'm going to switch to my small detail brush, and I'm just going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray watered down, and I'm just going to tap that color in all along the outer edges of the hat to give that shadow that'll make this appear to be white. So doing the wet on wet technique is going to allow the paint to kind of just blend through the hat and not feel so flat like a perfect line outlining the hat. Just like that. And then I'm going to clean this brush off completely. And I'm just going to blend that out just a little bit. Just blending it into the middle. All right, and then we're going to do the exact same thing for this little puff ball over here. I am going to be careful to avoid the red part that's coming into it because I don't want to reactivate that paint. And I'm going to take that same gray paint mixture and I'm just going to tap it in along the edges. And I'm kind of creating little swirly motions because I want it to appear fluffy and it's not just a complete straight circle. Just like that. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to clean my brush off and dry it so it's just slightly damp. Just kind of blend that color in, just like that. Now while the hat area dries, we're going to move down to his arms and the part of his body that is showing, and we are going to fill that in with a green color. So I'm just taking my green paint and I'm just going to fill in his arms, just avoiding his beard. And I chose green and red just because I wanted it to feel as Christmassy as possible. This is just, would be a great watercolor painting to put on a Christmas card. And for some reason, these gnomes are really popular this year. So it would be a great card to give somebody. Right, and then while I'm working on his arms, I'm going to add just a little bit more green paint to the mixture. And I'm just going to tap that in right along the area that's kind of touching his beard. That would create a nice shadow. And then right along the rim where it kind of goes into that white puff area. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I can tell this side has dried a lot quicker. So I'm still going to do that same step, and then I'm just going to clean my brush off. And with clean water, I'm going to start over in the lighter section and just kind of work my way over to that paint I just applied to help it blend and seep through without creating any harsh lines, but still getting that shadow. Do the same thing over here. Just blend that out so there's no harsh lines in between the dark and the light. And you may not have to do this if your paper stays wet longer. Mine is just drying very fast. Right, just like that. And then we are going to add that same green paint down here to the bottom area. I'm going to switch to my size 6 round brush because I don't need to worry about the detail or smaller areas as much down here. It'll go a lot faster with a bigger brush. I'm going to try to avoid his shoes as best as possible because I do not want to reactivate that black paint. I don't want it seeping into my green paint at all. Right over here. Just like that. I'm going to take a little bit of that darker paint like we did up top. Just going to tap it in right underneath the beard area to give a shadow. And then I'm just going to blend that out. Right. And then we're going to let this completely dry, and then we're going to come back in and we're going to add a second layer to the green arms and the bottom area. Right. So now what we're going to do is take some clean water on our brush and just fill in the arms. And then I'm going to go in with that green paint. I'm just going to make it a little bit darker because to me it was just looking way too light. And I'm just going to tap that in to that wet area. Okay, and I'm going to clean my brush off. I'm going to repeat that same process with the other arm. So first I'm going to apply clean water. And then I'm going to go in with that darker paint. I'm just going to tap it in all over. Just like that. And then I'm going to wait for these arms to dry before I go into the bottom, just because I can tell that it is really going to touch, and I want these two sections to feel separate. All right, now that his arms have dried, I'm going to fill up this bottom area with some clean water. Again, avoiding those shoes. And then I'm going to apply that darker paint by just tapping it in. All right, and then while that area dries, we can move on to the cup. So I'm just going to clean my brush off. And I'm going to switch to my small detail brush just because this is a very small part. And he is going to have a nice red Christmassy mug. So we're using the same paint color that we used for his hat. So just again, try to be careful and not touch his hands. Just going to take some more pigment while it is wet, and I'm just going to tap that color in. Just so it's more vibrant. Just like that. All right, and we are going to let all of the sections we just painted dry, and then we're going to come back in and we are going to keep adding some more detail to the white areas and then also to his hot cocoa. All Right, now we are going to add the shadowing to his beard, and then we are going to give him some shadowing that he is sitting on. So I'm going to take my size 6 round brush again, and I'm going to make sure all that green paint is off of it. And then with clean water, I'm going to fill up his beard, avoiding the nose, the sleeves, the cup, trying just to get his beard. And then I'm going to take that same gray paint we used for the hat, and I'm just going to tap that color in all around his beard, letting it blend and seep through. So just around the perimeter for the most part. There's a lot of water over there. Right underneath the hat, and then I'm going to blend that out because I can tell it's not really that wet up there. Just kind of around the nose. And then I'm going to clean my brush off, just kind of blend it all in and around so there's no harsh lines and it all just blends pretty seamlessly with each other. Especially down here, I can tell there's a lot of areas drying unevenly. Just kind of blending that out. All right, and then while the beard dries, I'm going to take some clean water on my brush again, and I'm just going to create a little surface for him to be sitting on. So just kind of around the base of his feet, slightly behind, and then I'm going to take that same gray paint and just kind of let that seep underneath him. Again, I'm not touching him at all, just going around the bottom to make it look like he's sitting somewhere, not just on white space. I'm going to take a little bit darker paint and bring it to him as close so it's more shadowing underneath him and then fades to that lighter layer that we put down first. Just like that. All right, and then to finish this off, to finish off our little gnome, we are just going to fill in our hot chocolate. So I've already mixed up some burnt umber and Payne's gray off to the side. And with this color, I'm just going to fill in the inside of the hot cocoa, avoiding those circles we put in place when we drew out our sketch for the marshmallows. Just like that. And then lastly, we are going to splatter over our painting, but I want to keep this as clean as possible. So I'm going to use my small detail brush, and I'm going to use my red paint, and I'm going to go very closely to where I want it to be splattered to try to avoid my gnome. So I'm not putting too much paint on my brush when I'm doing this. I'm trying to keep it pretty light. And I clean my brush, do the same thing with that green paint. All right, and there you have an easy watercolor Christmas gnome. Hey everyone, thanks for painting with me today. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and that you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. If you'd like any extra details on this painting, head over to my blog, Reflecting Creation. I'll have a link in the description box below. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.